Krishna devotees. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavallabha Giridharadhari Gopi Janavallabha Giridharadhari Yachodhanandana Braja Janagana Yamunatiravanachari Janavadhamadhava Kunjabihari Madhamadhava Kunjabihari Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradha Girivaradhari Yachodhanandana Vraja Janarandana Yachodhanandana Vraja Janarandana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Janaradha Madhava Kunja Bihari Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavallabha Shrivaradhari Jana Gopi Janavallabha Shrivaradhari Yachodhanandana Braja Janarandana Yachodhanandana Braja Janarandana Yamunatira Vanachari Munatira Vanachari Jayarada Madhava Kunjabihari Jayarada Madhava Kunjabihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jai Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai. To this morning Bhagavatam class. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 6, Chapter 8, and today there's some short, some verses with long purport. So we'll cover today verses 13 to 17. So I'll just read the translation for those verses that have some purports as well, but it's just a one line. So 13. The chapter is entitled the Narayan Kavachashtim. And chapter text 13 is translation. May the Lord who assumes the body of a great fish protect me in the water from the fierce animals that are associates of the demigod Varuna. By expanding his illusory energy, the Lord assumed the form of a dwarf Vamana. May Vamana protect me on the land. Since the gigantic form of the Lord, Vishvarupa, conquers the three worlds, may he protect me in the sky. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. This mantra seeks the protection of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the water, land, and sky, in his incarnations as the fish, Vamanadev and Vishvarupa. Text 14. May Lord Nishingadev, who appeared as the enemy of Hiranyakashipu, protect me in all directions. His loud laughing vibrated in all directions and caused the pregnant wives of the Asuras to have miscarriages. May that Lord be kind enough to protect me in difficult places like the forest and battlefront. Text 15. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. The Supreme Indestructible Lord is ascertained through the performance of ritualistic sacrifices and is therefore known as Yagneshvara. In his incarnation as Lord Bo, he raised the planet Earth from the water at the bottom of the universe and kept it on his pointed tusks. May that Lord protect me from rogues on the streets. May Parshuram protect me on the tops of mountains, and may the elder brother of Bharat, Lord Ramachandra, along with his brother Lakshmana, protect me in foreign countries. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. There are three Ramas. One Rama is Parshuram, Jamadagnya. Another Rama is Lord Ramachandra, and the third Rama is Lord Balarama. In this verse, the words Ramo, Bhri, Kutesva Ata indicate Lord Parshuram. The brother of Bharat Maharaj and Lakshmana is Lord Ramachandra. Text 16. May Lord Narayan protect me from unnecessarily following false religious systems and falling from my duties due to madness. May the Lord, in his appearance as Nara, protect me from unnecessary pride. May Lord Datreya, the master of all mystic power, protect me from falling while performing bhakti yoga. And may Lord Kapila, the master of all good qualities, protect me from the material bondage of fruitive activity. Text 17. Sanat Kumaro Bhakta Kamadeva Vat. Daya Sirsa Mam Pati Deva Yelanat Devarsi Varya Purusa Shanantarat Kumaro Harir Mam Nirayat SS Sat. Anybody wants to try?
Sanat Kumaro Vatukam Devad Dayash Risha Mam Pati Deva Helanat Devarshivarya Purushar Janam Tarat Gormo Harir Mam Nirayad Ajay
Thank you. Sanat Kumara, the great brahmachari named Sanat Kumar, Vatu, may he protect Kama Devat from the hands of Cupid, or lusty desire. Hayar Sirsha, Lord Hayagriva, the incarnation of the Lord, whose head is like that of a horse. Mam, me. Pati, on the path. Deva, Helena, from neglecting to offer respectful obeisances to Brahmanas, Vaishnavas, and the Supreme Lord. Devarsi Varya, the best of the saintly sages, Narada, Purusha Achna Antarat, from the offenses in worshipping the deity, Kumara, Lord Kumar, the tortoise, Lord Kurma, the tortoise, Hari, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Mam, me, Nirayat, from hell, Asesat, unlimited. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. May Sanat Kumar protect me from lusty desires. May I begin some auspicious activity. May Lord, as I begin some auspicious activity, may Lord Hayagriva protect me from being an offender by neglecting to offer respectful obeisances to the Supreme Lord. May Devarsi Narada protect me from committing offenses in worshipping the deity, and may Lord Kurma, the tortoise, protect me from falling to the unlimited hellish planets. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Lusty desires are very strong in everyone, and they are the greatest impediment to the discharge of devotion service. Therefore, those who are very much influenced by lusty desires are advised to take shelter of Sanat Kumar, the great brahmachari devotee. Narad Muni, who is the guide for Archana, is the author of the Narada Pancharatra, which prescribes the regulative principles for worshipping the deity. Everyone engaged in deity worship, whether at home or in the temple, should always seek the mercy of Devarisi Narada in order to avoid the 32 offenses while worshipping the deity. These offenses in deity worship are mentioned in the Nectar of Devotion. Om Jnana Timarandasya Jananjana Shalaka. Chakshuramitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guru. Vanchakalpatrubhyasya Kripa Sindhureva Patitanam Pavabhyo Vaishnavabhyo Namo Namah. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Garadhar Shri Vasti Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So we are busy reading these Narayan Kavacha shield, and of course there's various prayers to different personalities to give protection in different circumstances. And of course, we understand that there are 9 processes of devotion, and any one of these 9 processes can give us perfection. But of course, we're in this age of Kali Yuga, and some things are not so practical in this age, and of course it is recommended by Srimad Bhagavatam and so many great personalities that in this age of Kali Yuga, the best process that one can follow is chanting the Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So in this verse, of course, there's this mention, may Sanat Kumar protect me from lusty desire. So what is lust, of course? And most times, we connect lust to some sort of, it has some, sexual or opposite sex connotation. But actually, if we analyze what is the actual meaning of lust, on a very practical level, we see that lust is trying to satisfy our own senses. So when one gets introduced, to something higher than the material world or the modes of material nature, we understand that ultimately, as devotees, we want to overcome this lust or trying to please our own senses by pleasing the senses of Krishna. So this is, our goal, how to please the senses of Krishna. And in this way, we will not be so entangled in this material world, simply, going life after life, being born in the material world, and going through the trials and tribulations of material life. So if we can figure out a plan to be able to please the senses of Krishna, then we can have some hope of crossing over this ocean of nescience. So it seems like, if one analyzes, as one advances in Krishna consciousness, at some point in one's journey, if one analyzes, it seems like, of course, the word is given there, sukha, that there is an ocean of false. And of course, Sukadev Goswami, he is, explaining in the Bhagavatam, and that's why it's important for us to scrutinizingly study the Srimad Bhagavatam. It's explaining that, of course, the ultimate sum and substance, that there is actually one good thing. And of course, the one good thing is simply by chanting Hare Krishna, one can get out of this material existence and be able to go back home, back to Godhead. So, in terms of pleasing the senses of Krishna, we mentioned that, there is this 9 processes of devotion. Let's quickly just go through all the 9 processes. What's the 9 processes? There's Shravanam, Kirtanam, Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam. So, of course, Prabhupada is speaking here, or this verse is mentioning deity worship, Archana, and then, of course, the great author, Prabhupada is saying, guide for Archana is Narada Pancharatra. So, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, and Atmane Vedanam. So these are the 9 processes of devotion. Any one of them, we can go back home, back to Godhead, get liberation. And examples of these great devotees who have perfected their lives by these different processes. So if we just go through the list, some examples, of course, there's so many examples, but this was mentioned in one of the verses in the Bhagavatam, where Prabhupada was mentioning Shravanam. Of course, a good example of Shravanam is Parikshat Maharaj. Jai, thank you. Kirtanam, Sukadev Goswami. Smaranam, Prahlad Maharaj. Adasevanam, okay, Lakshmi Devi. Yep. Archanam, Pritu Maharaj. Vandanam, great devotee, offering prayers, Akrura. Dasyam. Hanuman. Thank you. Sakyam, friendship, Arjuna. And Atma Nivedanam, Vali Maharaj. Yes, very nice examples of how, these great devotees perfected their lives. So, we see that we seem to be struggling with these lusts. And of course, it takes many forms. And of course, in the last few classes also, we understood a little bit about the mind, how the mind is constantly, running after sense objects. And of course, these sense objects are in one sense also attracting the mind and embedding itself in the mind. So this is why, as devotees, we don't want to participate in any other activity except devotional service. Otherwise, things like watching movies and the likes, one can very quickly get entangled because the mind is so chanchala unsteady, that it will start seeing that these different seeds get planted in the mind. So here I was thinking of the example of Ajmer. We see in that pastime that we just read recently. Um, how did Ajmer fall down? The beginning of the process was he saw a prostitute embracing a person in the street, and his mind just became completely agitated just by seeing that. So of course we find ourselves in Kali Yuga, and at that time, that was just such a big thing. But now, there's all sorts of abominations, billboards, adult shops, so much of activities in Kali Yuga, you know, agitating the mind. And so it seems like, things are very insurmountable in terms of, how uncontrolled the mind can be. And so here we wanted to speak a little bit about, the conversation that Uddhava had with Krishna. And in this example, again, Uddhava was citing that, it's very, very difficult, to live in the material world. The mind is constantly running towards sense objects. Then, of course, we understand the process further deteriorates with false knowledge taking over. And then once false knowledge takes over, the mode of passion and its waves for material desires start to embed itself. And then, of course, one starts to make plans for material enjoyment. So it seems like, it's just a vicious cycle. And how to get out of the cycle. So in this conversation with Uddhava, Krishna cites the example of Lord Brahma and his sons, the four Kumaras. And again, Sanat Kumar was asking this question to Lord Brahma, this vicious cycle of material desires, what to do with it and how to get out. And of course, we understand Lord Brahma is very, very empowered as a progenitor, creator of the material world. And even Lord Brahma, he was very, very perplexed and couldn't answer Sanat Kumar. But in that last time, we see that, when Lord Brahma was perplexed like this, we see that Swan avatar, Krishna came as the Swan avatar to clear up this perplexity of Lord Brahma. So the swan, what do we know about the swan? The swan, of course, is very, very expert. It can separate if there's milk and water mixed in a bowl. The swan is able to just consume the milk. It's able to very, very expertly separate water and milk, even though, it seems impossible on a material plane. So, of course, when Lord Brahma became perplexed like this, then the Swan avatar came to respond to this perplexity. And so ultimately, we see that the advice that is given is that one should engage in devotional service. So this is the recommendation in the Srimad Bhagavatam as we go through all the different various examples of, the situation we find ourselves in. But we see that the advice ultimately boils down to engaging in devotional service. That when one is engaged in devotional service, then one can slowly stand with the heart of all these seeds that have been planted from so many lifetimes. So as devotees, we should all be able to make a plan how to engage our minds in devotional service. There's so many activities that one can perform according to one's nature, so that one doesn't get caught up in this material world with the mind making so many other plans. So if we can make a spiritual plan for ourselves, in terms of the day's activities, in the mornings, rising early, attending Mangalarti, you live outside the temple, of course. One can also have their own altar, own deities, and perform worship there as well. And in this way, Prabhupada gave us, a very wonderful program of morning program, and one can use activities, grihastas especially, go to work, and then of course, come back from work, taking Krishna Prasadam, and associating with devotees. So we should not underestimate associating with devotees, because this is the essence for our advancement in Krishna consciousness. So even if we do have a work situation, we should, find different opportunities to get the association of devotees. There's weekends when one is not working. If one doesn't live too far away from the temple, one can take advantage of the association of devotees. Now, of course, since COVID, there's so many online classes going on, so much of association of devotees going on Zoom. So, there's so many opportunities to get association of devotees. So we need to make a plan how we can attach our mind to Krishna's service. It's going to be a gradual process for us, but we should recognize that being in the material world is very, very difficult. And, we understand that there is the three modes of material nature. And of course, the mind is constantly being attracted in different ways to the different modes of nature. And in this way, because the mind is, being attracted like this, the mind sees some hope in every situation. And because it's constantly changing like that, the mind is calculating and trying to see different possibilities. So, one may be in the mode of passion, but then, the mind gets bored, gets attracted in different ways, and, it moves over to another mode. And because it's constantly moving shifting between these different modes, it's thinking, yes, there is different possibilities to enjoy more, to please my own senses. So in this way, we need to constantly check the mind, bring it back, and see how to engage the mind in devotional service. So, different things work for different devotees. Sometimes devotees want to be engaged in some particular project, some spiritual projects for the pleasure of the devotees, uh, or the temple, or the deities. So there's just so many activities that one can engage in to be able to make this gradual advancement into the consciousness. And like we said, we are the day that we want to make our heart as soft as butter, so that Krishna can come and steal it. So we see these different prayers being offered here, but ultimately we find that there's nothing wrong in prayer. Of course, we've heard now 9 processes of devotion, that one of the ways we can protect our life is by prayer. So there's nothing absolutely wrong with um, making prayers. So there's nice prayers given for our different circumstances. Like as devotees, we understand that, whenever there is some sort of danger, we pray to Lord Nishingadev. But we need to be mindful, in our prayers that we don't not become very fruitive, that we are not just constantly only praying and not engaging in the complete process of devotional service. Otherwise, the mind, can become very, very cheating and only wants to remember the Lord at the time of danger. And other times we just don't want to remember. This is the reason, of course, we understand that Kunti Devi, what's her prayer? Because none of us want to pray like Kunti Devi. Queen Kunti, she is praying that, my dear Lord, please bring on the calamities. Because when there is calamities, then I very quickly remember you. So we don't want to be, of course, in this distress situation and only remember the Lord in a distress situation. We want to engage in devotional service all of the time. And being in the stress situation only amplifies our remembrance of the Lord, and that only He can save us. So we want to be, in one sense, uh, so surrendered. Like we said, Bali Maharaj is there, the example, where we are able to offer everything to the Supreme Lord. We want to become helpless in one sense and bestow all our faith in the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. And of course, the best way, we said earlier, is by chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Then there's also, Prabhupada mentions the offenses in deity worship are mentioned in the Nectar of Devotion. So if one goes to Nectar of Devotion, one can read about all of these different offenses one has to avoid. And in this case, it's mentioned here just 32 offenses, but we see that the different Shastras give different offenses to avoid as well. So when you go to Nectar of Devotion, which was the 32, 32 ones. Yes, that's the 32. So I'll just go through a few of them. Maybe I'll post it on the group. One should not enter the temple of the deity in a car or palanquin or with shoes on the feet. Number 2, one should not fail to observe the various festivals for the pleasure of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, such as Janmashtami, Rath Yatra. One should not avoid bowing down before the deity. One should not enter the temple to worship God without having washed his hands and feet after eating. One should not enter the temple in a contaminated state. One should not bow down on one hand. One should not circumambulate in front of Sri Krishna. So here the description is given. The process of circumambulating the temple is that one should begin circumambulating from the deity's right-hand side of the temple and come around. Such circumambulation should be performed outside the temple structure, at least 3 times a daily. One should not spread his legs before the deity. One should not sit before the deity holding his ankles, elbows, and knees with his hands. So when we're sitting for Bhagavatam class, I'm guilty of that one. So there's just so many injunctions. And then, of course, the Vara Purana states there are more. One should not touch the deity in a dark room. One should not fail to strictly follow the rules and regulations of worshipping the deity. One should not enter the temple of the deity without first making some sound. One should not offer any foodstuff to the deity which has been seen by dogs or other lower animals. We see the pujaris, have a great responsibility in the process of deity worship, um, as given, by our experts, Narad Muni. Uh, there's just so many injunctions one has to follow. So, of course, we shouldn't lose sight of the eventual goal of, deity worship. Yes, there's so many rules and regulations to follow, but ultimately, deity worship is meant to help us in the matter of cleanliness. So in order to worship the deity, one has to be very, very suchi. And so, yes, just as much as there is so many regulations to follow, one can train the mind to be clean at all time. Um, One should not show disrespect to the scripture teaching about the supremacy of the Lord. 23. One should not introduce any opposing scriptures. One should not chew betel nut before the deity. So in this way, there's, of course, so many injunctions given in the scripture. We understand that there are parallel lines of authority. There's the Bhagavatam and Pancharatrika Vidhi. So both, of course, are very, very important in cultivating spiritual knowledge or Vaishnavism. And of course, as Grihastas, the focus should be deity worship. And of course, we see so many nice devotees doing so much of nice service for Sri Sri Radha Damodar, have introduced so many nice standards, according to the different injunctions given by Srila Prabhupada, how to worship the deities very, very nicely. And so we should be very, very mindful of all of these offenses to the deities. Okay, what else is there? Okay, we can stop here. Any comments, questions, devotees, clarifications, corrections?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, I would like to thank you. I want to thank you for a very nice class. I have a comment, a point of clarification regarding the list of offenses. Item 7, which is that one should not circumambulate in front of Sri Krishna. And it explains the process of circumambulating the temple is that one should begin circumambulating from the deity's right-hand side of the temple and come round. And that such circumambulation should be performed outside the temple structure. And it's done at least 3 times each day. So the clarification I wanted to offer is that it is not necessarily that the circumambulation must be done entirely outside the whole of the temple structure. But within ISKCON, Srila Prabhupada directed the construction of our temples such that it is possible to perform the circumambulation inside the temple structure, but outside the deity room. So here at Gita Nagari, we have a hallway that makes it possible to go all the way around the deity room, and you'll find similar arrangements are in other temples that were constructed under Srila Prabhupada's direction. In Mayapur, every morning Srila Prabhupada would circumambulate Sri Radha Madhava within the temple structure, but just circumambulating the deity room itself. That's all I got. Hare Krishna.
Yes. Thank you so much for that clarification. Yes, I think traditionally, if we see, how temples, I mean, there's still some small temples in India that traditionally, the temples were just, practically like, even the Goswami's Bhajan Kutir, just very, very small facilities where deities were, being worshipped. And so the size of temples, as Tarka Prabhu rightly pointed out, Prabhupada directed the construction of all of our temples, and because of the size of the nature of our temples, we have this facility. But traditionally, the temples were much smaller, so that this injunction was still applicable back then. Of course, it says outside, but we're following Prabhupada's direction, and he created this nice facility. Because, of course, I think Prabhupada realized, we're from the West, a lot of us, and having to go outside also in terms of practicality might not be so favorable for our minds. So yes, thank you for that clarification. We have such nice facility provided by Srila Prabhupada. Other comments, questions, devotees?
We have 2 hands raised in the chat.
Okay. Anybody wants to go first? Nagari Krishna Prabhu, Dina Palika.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Thank you so much for very insightful class on how to just be observant of the internal workings of the mind and how to rein it in. So my question relates to lust and how to purify ourselves of that. So we see in the society of devotees that there are wonderful devotees who've been able to transmute this force, and they're giving devotees so much, a lot of shelter, and they're staying engaged in devotional service. And then you also see devotees who are also engaged, but there's been like stunning fall downs with big leaders, etc. So what is the actual difference between the two? The motivation of my question relates to, because one could say that being the statement, just always stay engaged in devotional service, it's like, well, you're just saying I should just be distracted, distract my mind, and in this way I get purified. But it seems like, just externally, it seems like, quote unquote, being distracted by other engagement is not sufficient for purification from lust. So what's the difference based on your experience and understanding between those two categories of devotees? One who, there's a stream that is actually really making significant advancement by always being engaged in devotional service, and then there's another stream. They are also always engaged, but they are having difficulties.
Yeah, my short stay in Krishna consciousness, I'm no expert, of course, on the topic. I prefer milking cows and trying to work for Krishna, a fruitive worker, and in this way try to be engaged. But my take on it, in my opinion. Krishna says it a lot, in my opinion. But of course, in my opinion, it seems like one has to analyze one's life. Is one really engaged in devotional service? And I heard someone say this example. I mean, it's not the best example, but we know, I think practically all of us, all devotees, may know of the pitfalls in the material world. So yes, we start chanting Hare Krishna, we quickly associate with devotees, make some advancement, and understand at a very basic level what is material and what is spiritual. But we find that when we do have that understanding, we want to be engaged, but then there may be a 5 minute here and a 5 minute there where we're not engaged, or there could be even longer periods of time of where one is not engaged in either reading, chanting, associating with devotees, or doing some sort of practical devotional service, or hearing, for that matter, that this restless mind can't stay still. We understand that it just cannot stay still. So thinking of the void, even we understand getting liberation, merging into the Brahmajyoti is not a solution, because again the mind becomes bored. So there has to be some engagement. So because there has to be some engagement, it might appear that someone is 100% engaged. Like someone may think, even myself, I'm 100% engaged. But there's 24 hours in a day, and maybe I'm not 100% engaged. I think the signs of one 100% engaged is rapid advancement in Krishna consciousness. And to the degree that one is not engaged, that is the degree that one is not advancing in Krishna consciousness. You can create the illusion for as long as you want that you are engaged, 100%. And this is I think the reason why we find, sometimes devotees after 20, 30 years, 40 years fall down. Because, they weren't 100% engaged. And if they weren't 100% engaged, then these different seeds, anarthas, are seating themselves and embedding themselves in one's mind. So the example I heard one senior devotee mention was, for example, Kirtananda. He used to, in the heydays, when he was following, Prabhupada's instructions very, very nicely, even during that time, he used to, read some Mayavadi literature. And of course, we see what happened eventually. So we shouldn't underestimate. The point is, don't underestimate the material energy and, these different modes and how they affect us. It's the same thing that Prabhupada was saying, when he was observing, so many disciples, that were getting initiated. At some point, he was stepping back and, seeing, the nature and behavior of his disciples even. And he was thinking to himself, my disciples are not, what's the famous thing he said? My disciples are not sufficiently afraid of Maya. Here I am. They had some little knowledge that, Prabhupada had shared with them by that time. But here they were, thinking that they were so mighty and so powerful. So Prabhupada was saying, they're not sufficiently afraid of Maya. Here I am, praying every day not to fall down, not to be attacked by Maya. And so, if one sees that or hears that, one can understand the gravity of the situation, that we should not underestimate, these different seeds planting themselves. And that's why I gave the example of, just seeing a prostitute. Of course, the example is there of Vishwamitra, right? When he saw the fish, performing such great austerities, he saw the fish mating, completely broke his meditation. So we shouldn't underestimate, all of these material activities around us. So, one may think that, okay, just going to work, getting a job, is okay. Yes, it is okay. Becoming responsible grihastas, is a very nice thing to do. And of course, Prabhupada also said that, if one is working, keeping a regular job and, using his money very, very wisely in Krishna consciousness, this is also okay. But we, need to be mindful out there, what kind of association we're taking and, what seeds are being planted in this mind of ours. Because it's a gradual process, and we understand, sometimes there's karma from previous lifetimes also affecting us. The attractions, addictions that, we've become accustomed to from, so many lifetimes can still bother us. So, this is why association of devotees is very, very crucial. And we need to be 100% engaged somehow or the other. And that's why I'm saying we need to all make a plan of, how there's no idle time, because we understand the old saying, but an idle mind is the devil's workshop. So I think that's just my humble opinion about, this difference between, why some devotees are making significant advancement and some are not, because there is this idle time that, the internet is there. There's so much of activity on the internet. So one can, slowly say, well, I'm giving 15 hours for Krishna and, 20 minutes for my mind. It's not such a bad thing. But this, even 1 minute, even 30 seconds can be detrimental to our advancement in Krishna consciousness. Anybody else wants to offer some advice, opinion in this regard? Please.
Thanks, Prabhu. Thank you.
Madhya Palika?
Is there time? It's after 8.
Yeah, I hear the conch.
Okay.
We'll have to do it later. Thank you. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Granth Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.